It looks like OG Anunoby is about to get paid a serious bag, as one of the major talking points heading into the season is that the Toronto Raptors have 3 unrestricted free agents come next summer, and Pascal Siakam, Gary Trent Jr., as well as OG Anunoby. And while that's the case, and while the Raptors have been rumored in a bunch of potential trade packages over the course of the summer, Masai Ujiri did not make any roster shakeups, did not make any moves to sort of address this weird situation. He also hasn't handed out any contract extensions either. It doesn't seem like one is really on the way for the Toronto Raptors' top 3 guys. As Pascal Siakam, Masai basically took the approach of we'll wait and see how he plays in the less selfish Toronto Raptors offense for this upcoming year. That was essentially his comments during media day. Gary Trent Jr., there's sort of been a radio silence. Chris Haynes indicated that an extension was pretty close, was on its way on day 1 of free agency, but that's months ago now at this point. But OG Anunoby reports have basically come out that it's very unlikely he's going to sign an extension with the Toronto Raptors, as the Raptors can currently offer him $117 million over 4 years, which could pay him $30 million per season, which is a big chunk of change. According to Mark Stein, however, Anunoby is ready to turn down that contract and from the Toronto Raptors and enter unrestricted free agency. Now, this doesn't mean that OG Anunoby is surely going to leave, because the number that he's likely to get out there on the open market is much higher than that $117 million number, which might feel crazy as you look at OG Anunoby's stats. The box score, they've never really popped off the sheet. I mean, 17 points per game, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, not bad by any means. Defensively, it's really strong, 2 steals a night. Field goal percentage, 48% of the field, 39% from the three-point line. Very, very solid, effective 3-and-D basketball player. There's no debates, there's no arguments about it. But when you're talking about even the extension that the Toronto Raptors could offer right now for OG Anunoby at that 115 mark, right? That feels like a lot of money for a guy that's not really your number 1, 2, or even third option in the offense currently. At least he wasn't last season. So it's something the Toronto Raptors have to look at. However, the number that has been thrown out there by analysts speculating about the number he could receive in free agency next summer is pretty crazy. And you probably saw it in the thumbnails. Mike Scherer basically came out and predicted that the OG Anunoby is going to receive a 4-year, $180 million contract. And no one really knows where OG is going to be, but he's 26 years old, an unrestricted free agent with a prototypical 3-and-D skill set, and he's going to get paid by someone. And if he's traded to a team then that's giving up assets, OG Anunoby, that's all this stuff guarding OG. We know the player he is, watching him game in, game out, and with the season coming around the corner, Raptors basketball will be back, but that number is lucrative for OG Anunoby. Again, I showed his stats, 16 points per night, right? Fred VanVleet, I guess, got a similar number, and I guess on the open market, at least a lot of Toronto Raptors fans would value OG higher than Fred VanVleet, even though the usage rates were a lot different. Fred VanVleet was the leader, was an all-star, a little bit more respected across the league, I'd imagine. Maybe that's not the case. I know he's definitely not respected in the comment sections of Raptors Digest videos a little bit, but I digress. OG Anunoby, never being an all-star, has dealt with injuries in the past, receiving $45 million per season, a 4-year, $180 million deal. Just feels like a lot. Now, when it seems like, we hear reports that OG might rebuff the regular $35 million per year contract extension from the Toronto Raptors, and you hear he's going to get a number like this, makes it feel like, this is something a legitimate number he could receive out there in the open market, and Masai Ujiri's likely going to pay it, because firstly, for everything we've heard about OG Anunoby wanting the ball in his hands more often, wanting to show what he can do, same way Jeremy Grant did with the Detroit Pistons, and then it's getting paid max contract after max contract. OG Anunoby wants that role, but his disgruntlement doesn't seem with Masai Ujiri, with former coach Nick Nurse, or even with the Toronto Raptors in general. It's just he wants that role. If it's with the Toronto Raptors, he couldn't be happier. He even said on media day that he wants to be here in Toronto, and even though he's not going to sign that extension, which makes sense monetarily for OG Anunoby, and the fact that Masai Ujiri refused to throw OG Anunoby out in any specific trade talks indicates that Masai Ujiri's planning on paying him. He's planning on matching whatever contract is out there on the open market for OG Anunoby. And regardless of role, regardless of what's going to happen in the new Darko Rajakovic system, where apparently players 1 through 4 will all have the ball in their hands, swinging the ball all over the court, a new style of offense. The fact that Masai Ujiri refused to trade OG Anunoby in a Damian Lillard deal when it seemed like if he was willing to put OG Anunoby into a package, that deal would have been done. Close, shut, and the Toronto Raptors would have Damian Lillard. There's also talks about the Sacramento Kings. A report recently came out that the Kings were heavily interested in OG Anunoby early in the summer before they brought back Harrison Barnes. Once they heard the Toronto Raptors asking price for OG Anunoby if a deal was to get done, the Raptors are asking for the moon and the stars. Even the New York Knicks, our Knicks creator on Knicks Digest, is talking to sort of beat reporters and hearing that the Knicks are done with any potential OG Anunoby packages. They're done calling their... they have Masai Ujiri on speed dial, thinking the Raptors will blow it up and wanting to steal away our two-way star on the wing, right? They're not doing it anymore. As Masai Ujiri is basically scoffing at any type of deal that comes our way. But the one concerning thing about this is if OG Anunoby's receiving $45 million per year, yes, he's younger than a guy like Pascal. Yes, the defense is absolutely elite. He's the best defender on the Toronto Raptors team. The Toronto Raptors have a lot of guys that they have to pay. And looking at a guy like Pascal Siakam, when you compare his stats to OG Anunoby, 24 points per game, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. The three-point shooting isn't as effective, obviously isn't the defender OG Anunoby is, but is remarkably efficient from the field on an extremely higher, usage rate and volume, shooting the ball for the Toronto Raptors. I mean, you're giving a lot of money to OG. That's not a lot that you'll have for Pascal. Not a lot you'll have for Gary Trent Jr. Jakob Poeltl is a guy that's making $20 million annually. And then in a couple seasons, you're going to have to pay Scotty Barnes, right? He's only entering his 3rd year. That extension comes quick. He's going to be offered a potential max extension if he doesn't sort of fall off a cliff for this upcoming season from the Toronto Raptors next off season. So that's a lot of money the Toronto Raptors are committing out there. And it makes you think, because OG Anunoby, maybe with a more improved role, with more opportunities, with Fred VanVleet gone, he'll be able to grow and develop into that player that we've all been hoping he takes the leap into, because he has the physical attributes to be able to do it. He has the jump shot. Again, the in-between game, we've seen flashes of his handle improving, the mid-range jump shot sort of developing, but right now, he isn't at the level of a Pascal Siakam. And if you're giving this money to an OG Anunoby, and that comes at the cost of not being able to re-sign Pascal, there's a lot of questions that will be raised by Toronto Raptors fans, even though people, again, they're not happy with the stars of the Toronto Raptors this past year. Pascal Siakam is an extremely valuable piece for this Toronto Raptors team, so they're going to have to figure out what the deal is with OG Anunoby if they end up giving him a lucrative contract. So we'll see what ends up happening for the Toronto Raptors. Again, I want OG on this team. It perfectly fits amongst other stars. Could potentially develop into one of those guys, but $45 million is a heck of a lot of money. So let me know what you guys think. And if you guys are interested in more Toronto Raptors news, particularly the next breakout players of the Toronto Raptors, definitely click that button, whichever direction it is, and watch that video. Cheers.